okay, I kind of need your help. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name's Theo. Thanks for hanging out. If you haven't already subscribed, please go ahead and consider it. We're almost at 300 subscribers. And if you like what I do here, or if you like this video, maybe consider leaving a like because it helps quite a bit. I'm doing this video because I need a little bit of help. I have quite a few books and a series or two that I just keep putting off. I keep deferring them, postponing them, pushing them down the line, and finding reasons not to read them. A valid reason is that I only have a certain amount of time. Some of these are just deferred as a product of me not being able to get to them yet. But some of them I'm putting off for other reasons. Some of them I'm intimidated by because they're so big, or perhaps maybe even a little bit convoluted. Some of them I haven't got to yet simply for the fact that I'm afraid I might not like them as much. There's a series on here that isn't complete, and so that is keeping me from reading it. I'd love your opinion on that one. And really, for the most part, I just have a list here of a bunch of books that for one reason or another either intimidate me or, I haven't finished for some other reason. And I wanted your opinion to guide me a little bit to see if I should be fitting these in, making them a priority, or if some of you have experienced the same sort of trepidation when considering these books. So I'm going to get right into the first one here with Ship of Theseus. This one is by J.J. Abrams and Doug Dorst. It's two authors. I think it was pretty much led by J.J. Abrams, if I'm not mistaken, or it's actually the other way around. And we just know J.J. Abrams, even though Doug Dorst kind of led it. You might know J.J. Abrams as a film producer, like on Lost. I think he did like a newer Star Trek movie. He did some of the newer Star Wars movies. I think that's kind of what he's most known for. But this book is one that I think we have like a scheduled buddy read. I don't exactly know when it's supposed to happen. I think it's pretty soon. And I've had it on the shelf for a while and I keep looking at it and I'm a little bit intimidated by this one. It is a beautiful looking book. And the interesting thing with this one is it's kind of like, I don't know too much about it because I think at the heart of it, there's a bit of a mystery, and there's a lot that you have to do with this book. I know that sounds really confusing, but basically inside this book, and I'll put some shots on because I'm afraid to open this and lose some stuff, but basically inside this book, there's letters and little pieces of, paper, mystery items and things like that you have. A postcard, for example, fell out when I first opened it. And so there's these things that you have to piece together in order to kind of unravel this mystery and work your way through the story and the book. So the premise is incredibly intriguing to me. I'm just worried about the fact that it might be a little bit too convoluted, and I've heard a little bit of mixed things on people's enjoyment of this one. On Goodreads, it has about 3.86, I think. And while that's not by any means, the sign of a terrible book, it is on the lower side. And I feel like that might be just a product of some people not really appreciating what it tried to do, or some people maybe even kind of being confused about the whole thing. Because like I said, there's a ton to this one and it's a very involved reading experience. It's not something you can simply, sit down and read through. This is going to take a little bit of work, I think, and it should be a fun experience of laying all these items out and following along as you work your way through the book and kind of find all its little trinkets and secrets and stuff. So for that reason, I'm a little bit intimidated by this one, and it's not something I would read by myself. So I'm waiting to read this with a bunch of friends over at Mike's Book Reviews on the Discord there. We're doing a read along, I think. I'm a little bit wary of this one. If any of you have tried this and you've enjoyed it, let me know. More importantly, if you guys have tried this and there was something really important that you want me to take note of, or if you didn't like this for some reason, I would love to hear that, because this is one I've just kept kicking down the road. And if I don't read it with this group of friends, I'm worried I probably won't. The next one is a little bit in the same category, and that is House of Leaves by Mark Danielewski, I think it's how you pronounce it. This one again is one that is not the book that you can just sit down and read, cover to cover and kind of just enjoy a story. This one is very, very odd. There are pages in here with a sentence. There are pages in here with just photos. There are pages where you have to read upside down. There are pages with numbers, pages with stuff crossed out, pages in different colors. It's really a bizarre book from what I understand, and it's a crazy experience. I'm not even going to attempt to try and figure out what this one is about or tell you what it's about, because I'm trying to go into this one blind, just like I'm trying to go into Ship of Theseus blind. This one does seem a little bit similar to Ship of Theseus in that there's a mystery, and you kind of have to work your way through and kind of understand what's happening as this thing unravels. And I just don't know what I'm going to think about it. I have some friends who have read this and have given it very high praise. I know a couple people who didn't really get it. And I wonder if that's a reader thing or a preference, or maybe it's a book thing. I don't know. So if you've read this one, let me know in the comments what you thought, because this is another one that I love to own. I think it's an incredible idea. While I might end up actually thinking that this is a very good book, I don't know if I'm going to actually, enjoy it or like the reading experience necessarily. So this is one that I'm a little bit worried to jump into. This is probably another one where maybe, a buddy read might make the most sense, because I think it lends itself well, from what I understand, to a lot of discussion. So yeah, this is another one that I'm a little bit freaked out to try. Let me know if you've tried it, if you like it, if you don't, what the deal is with this one, because it is really weird. The next book that I'm a little bit afraid to jump into, and I keep kind of deferring further and further down the road, is Senlin Ascends. This is the first book in the Books of Babel by Josiah Bancroft, and I actually own all 4 of these, and I bought them on the recommendation of Alan over at the Library of Alexandria. And if you guys watch this channel, you guys probably know who Alan is. I love him and his channel, and I think he's awesome. And when he recommended these, I thought, you know what, I'm going to give these a shot. And then the 4th book came out, and then there was some mixed opinions, and Alan will be the first one to tell you that he doesn't agree with some booktubers not necessarily enjoying the ending and having that taint their experience of the entire series. I've heard a lot of praise on the first book and even the first 3, and the last book doesn't seem to stick the landing for a lot of people. And I'll be really honest with you, I am worried about starting something where I don't know if the landing is going to work for me. There might be differing opinions on whether the ending of a series can kind of impact the rest of the experience for you, and whether a bad ending can ruin the entire thing for you. I'm sort of the opinion that it can. If it's bad enough, I think it can. I'm not going to not read it just because I'm worried about the ending, but I keep pushing this and pushing this further along the line. I know I'll get to it, but it keeps dropping down my priority list as other books come out and as I discover other books and other authors. And the reason for that, I'll be honest, is BookTube and Goodreads, reviews and recommendations, or, opinions from people that I otherwise, align with in my tastes, knowing that they're very well read. So this is one that, yeah, I'm ashamed to say I keep putting off because I'm worried about the ending. If you guys have had a good experience with this one or a bad one, please let me know. Let me know if this is maybe something that I should try and prioritize. The first book, at least, is not that big. I know that they get bigger, and the 4th one is actually a bit chunky. So let me know. This is another one that I'm curious about, and I just haven't gotten to it yet. Speaking of series and endings, I'm very embarrassed to say that I have not read A Song of Ice and Fire. I know. And before you unsubscribe, just hear me out. So as some of you may or may not know, I went a very long time without reading fiction and, for pleasure in general. And so I would consider myself a little bit late to, the fantasy genre and stuff like that. I didn't really get very, very heavy into fantasy until a couple years ago. And so I'm making my way through a ton of these very popular series. And A Song of Ice and Fire is one that I just simply haven't prioritized because it's not finished. I did watch the show when it came out, and I was actually a big fan of the show right up until the last couple seasons. I actually didn't finish the last couple seasons, and by the time the last final season came out, the stuff I was hearing about it just didn't make me want to continue. Eventually I will, but I would like to keep the show and the book series separate because they're completely different, especially how they end up. With the uncertainty of the A Song of Ice and Fire conclusion, I have asked some friends if they think it's worth reading. And a lot of you have said, forget about the ending. There's enough story here and enough beautiful writing to make the journey worthwhile without the destination. So this is one that I'm a little bit reluctant to get into, even though I know as a fantasy reader, it's you have to read it. I have to get it under my belt. It's a bucket list, series. So I will read it, but it's just something I haven't gotten to yet. And I'm wondering if you guys think it's something I should prioritize. I think Yolene over at Yolene Reads is starting a read along in January for this one, or she's part of a read along. I think in my discussion with Steve Talks Books and Yolene and Joanna, we were talking about that a little bit. And I think that might be a time where I have to make a decision if I'm going to jump into it or if I'm going to postpone it for another year or so. So I think that I would jump on this one if there's a group read along, but let me know if this is something I should prioritize, or if you guys have sort of given up or forgotten about that one, or if you guys would ever do a reread at all, if you did read it already, or if you have read part of it, if you'd ever finish. I have 2 other series on this list, and both of them intimidate me for different reasons. One, is because it's super, super long. The other one is because I feel like it's too much work. And that is The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan and Brandon Sanderson, and then Malazan by Stephen Erickson. The Wheel of Time is 16 books, I believe, give or take. I think there's a novella in there that either makes it 16 or is an addition to that. And it's just a very, very big time commitment, and I haven't gotten to it yet. I read The Eye of the World when I was younger, and I couldn't really get into it, and I ended up not finishing it. And that was probably for a lot of reasons, and I was tied up with other things or busy or whatever. But yeah, it's just one that I haven't been able to make my way through. And I know people who are diehard fans of the series. I also know people who don't quite understand the appeal of it. So I want to know from people who've read The Wheel of Time, do you think it should take priority? Do you think that there are other series or other books I should read before that? Do you think it's a series that I should just kind of get to when I get to it? And for those of you who've read Malazan, please let me know if I should read Malazan, or even better, if I should read maybe the first book or first 1 or 2 books to see, what I think. A lot of people have said, sample from Gardens of the Moon, read the first book and see what you think. This is one where I feel like the series is potentially a little bit too much work for me. I read for pleasure, and I don't really want to have to take notes or, get thrown into different worlds and be kind of confused for the fun of it until everything wraps up and everything makes sense. Like I don't want to read, 10, 12 books or whatever it is, only to kind of understand and be satisfied at the very end. Like I kind of want to enjoy the process and the characters and the world. But from the people that I've heard from that have read and enjoyed this series, they say it's some of the best in fantasy ever. The best of fantasy, as Philip Chase would say. So here's a question. If I had to start a series tomorrow, which one would you start? Would you start Malazan? Would you start Wheel of Time? Or would you tell me to just go and try A Song of Ice and Fire? I need to know. I need some help, because these are all series that I know that I want to get to at some point, but I just don't know when, and they kind of freak me out. The last 3 are just standalones, and one of them is The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. This one is, first of all, I was going to do a video on cover buys. I was going to do a video on some of the best covers and some books that I bought literally just because of the cover. And this is one of them. It's probably one of my favorite covers. Just the colors are vibrant. There's a dragon on here. There's a bit of an Asian flair. Obviously it's like Asian inspired storytelling, but it just looks so beautiful. And I bought this literally because I just thought it looked amazing. And it was a bit of a booktube darling a couple years ago. Everyone was talking about this one. I don't know much about it. I know that there's, it's about war and court, and there's dragons in it, and there's a bit of an Asian flair, and the importance of feminism is sort of at the forefront. And I think there's a same-sex relationship in here. So there's a lot of things, a lot of themes, a lot of whatever going on in here. And it's for a lot of reasons that I'm a little bit intimidated to pick this one up. One, first of all, it's huge, and to find time is a little bit difficult. Second, there's a lot of themes in here, and I've heard a little bit of mixed opinions on how some of them are executed and how some of the characters come across. So this is one where I picked up knowing I would want to get to it at some point. I just don't know exactly when. And I'm curious from those of you who've read this one, did you like it? Did you not? Would you prioritize this one? Would you bump it up on the TBR? Would you make the Priory a priority? All right, that one's out of the way. Another big one is The Count of Monte Cristo. That one is the next classic that I want to read. It was written quite some time ago, and it is a huge book. I think it's more than 1,000 pages. So for those reasons, the fact that it's huge and the fact that it's a classic, I'm a little bit worried that it might not land with me. I have some friends that have said it's incredible. I have one friend in particular that it's his favorite book ever. And he's fairly well read, although he doesn't read a whole lot of fantasy. So, I wonder if our tastes really align and if I should take that with a grain of salt. But The Count of Monte Cristo is something that I've been wanting to read for a while. And so for those of you who've read it, would you urge me to try and fit that one in? Are there other classics that you enjoyed more? Maybe something a little bit shorter? Or was it worth the ride and it's worth the length and it's worth making the time for? It's definitely a classic that I want to get under my belt. I haven't made a huge commitment to read a ton of classics anytime soon, but I would like to fit the odd one in here and there and to read at least a couple a year. That would be really nice. So let me know, for those of you who've read Count of Monte Cristo, what did you think? The next book that's on the list was actually the reason for this video. I just watched Andrew's Wizardly Reads. He did a beautiful review on Stephen King's The Stand, and The Stand has been one of my most intimidating books for a long time. I really enjoy Stephen King. I've been dabbling in Stephen King a little bit here and there. I'm trying to make my way through his most popular books, obviously. And the next real, popular book that I have, and if I'm going to go in publication order, except for some of the short stories that I'm trying to fit in, if I'm going to go in publication order for the rest of them, The Stand, I believe, is the next one on my list. And I know that there's some tie-ins from other books to The Stand, and I know that The Stand ties into The Dark Tower and all that stuff. Really, this one is intimidating because of the length. It is Stephen King's fattest book, I think. The audiobook is like 50 hours. And I remember that because on my commutes about 5 or 6 years ago, I tried to listen to The Stand and I got probably a third of the way through and I was enjoying it. I thought the audiobook was good enough. It was okay. It was just a very, very long book. And I got to kind of the, slice of life part of the book, and it was just dragging a little bit for me. I don't know if that was about a third of the way in or maybe even half. I stopped commuting as much as well at some point, and so I couldn't really, or at least I didn't commit to reading this one with my eyeballs. So I just never really picked it back up. And it's one that as I've discovered Stephen King and discovered fantasy, it's not, it's not very fantastical, but as I discovered Stephen King and got back into reading, fiction and enjoying books, this is one that was definitely on the bucket list. And it's one that I want to try and fit in. it's just big, you guys, like it's just fat. And I do have this beautiful Holdorf edition. That's these matching covers that you've probably seen here and there. I think there's 6 of them. There's Salem's Lot, there's Night Shift, there's Pet Sematary. So I have most of them. I think I just don't have Salem's Lot. No, I have Salem's Lot. I don't have Pet Sematary, which is actually to date my favorite King book that I've read. But I've only read, like I said, a handful. So let me know if you guys think I should prioritize this one. Andrew's Wizardly Reads, I will leave his review in the description. Check it out. It was a very, very well thought out, well articulated review on kind of what this book is about, what makes it so special, and how to approach it, and kind of what you'll get from it and what you won't, because sometimes there's some misconceptions with Stephen King books. So this is one that I would like to try sooner than later. I just don't know when, but I know it's an important Stephen King book, and I can't call myself a Stephen King fan until I've read this one. So let me know what you guys think. I had a comment the other day that said I should read it first because The Stand can be a little bit convoluted at times, which I've heard, and it is a little bit more of a straightforward story that's easier to follow, notwithstanding the fact that it's also super freaking long. But yeah, I could go either way. I could read it or The Stand, either one. I've wanted to read both for quite some time. So let me know in the comments, because I need to make some decisions about what I'm going to fit in for the last half of the year. I do have a lot scheduled already, but I also have a lot of room to fit in books like this and series that I've been putting off. So let me know. I'm curious what you guys think. As always, I look forward to talking with you guys more in the comments as usual, and I will catch you guys in the next one.